So I'm dreaming of this place. It's Leopold's Book Bar Cafe. It's the dreamiest bookstore, cafe, and cocktail bar combo you'll ever find. And it's right here at 1301 Regent Street. They've got the latest books from around the world, wines to sip or take home, and live jazz, plus open hours until midnight most nights of the week. You can grab a drink or dessert and just kick back at Leopold's.
Today on CityCast Madison. Dane County is one of Wisconsin's fastest growing counties and economies. We're home to state government and the state's flagship university, and to more farmland than just about any other part of the state. With thousands of employees and nearly $1 billion budget, Dane County is the largest local government outside of Milwaukee. For more than a decade, Joe Parisi has led it, but he's retiring in May. Today, we speak with County Executive Joe Parisi about why he's retiring now, his record in office, and what he's learned along the way. It's Monday, November 13th, and here's what Madison's talking about. Executive Parisi, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So not counting Milwaukee, you're the executive of the largest local government in Wisconsin. How would you describe your job?
Boy, it's hard to sum up. It's an amazing job. It's really, I think, one of the best jobs a person could have in public service. There are just, as you know, there are so many areas that you can have a positive impact. And for someone who likes to be involved and cares about a lot of different things, it's really just, it's a dream job.
So what would you say is your most important responsibility?
You know, it's really I guess 30,000 feet, I see it as the overall well-being of the community, and that obviously touches on a lot of areas from, social issues to watching out for the vulnerable folks among us, to watching out for the climate and the environment in which we all have to live. It's just all encompassing. And then obviously when there are emergency situations or anything from a natural disaster to the pandemic, it's to step up and do everything I can and my team can do to make sure that everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, mayor has a nice ring to it, but executive is a little, I guess you kind of think of like a company or something, but you really are managing all these important agencies for the county, right?
Yeah, it's a massive organization, really. I mean, the budget I just introduced is close to a $900 million budget. There are 2,500 employees, 30 departments. We contract with hundreds of community partners. And, as we touched upon a little bit, we are in every area of the community, not only literally with the departments with what we're doing, but we're also always partnering and working with and coordinating with all of the local municipalities and school districts, et cetera. Yeah, it's a lot. And for the, right personality, it's a perfect fit. And for me, from my perspective, it was a great fit.
What's something maybe people don't know about the job that they should?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, because a lot of the things maybe people do know. I mean, this is a 24/7, 365 job. You are always on call. You are always involved. If something goes on in the middle of the night, the phone rings. If there is, there's just so much to do. So we have like a lot of units of government specific prescribed duties, right? A lot of those in the human service area, highway, et cetera. But what's really nice about the job, too, is that there's the flexibility in it to assess community needs and to create partnerships and to be proactive when needed and to, respond to challenges when needed, too. I think of the work that we've done on, in the climate space. There's nothing in state statutes that says, county government will watch out for our natural environment. County government will assess, the threats to humanity that we can deal with. But, for me, I've always been passionate about environmental protection and about climate change and renewable energy. And, folks know that certain things are passions of mine and that we've been able to have some really nice accomplishments. but it's only because those issues are also passions of our entire community. Our community wants us out there protecting the natural environment and dealing with climate change. We've become a leader in the nation with that. And, that's one of the reasons I feel so blessed is because not only have I had the opportunity to work in all these issues, I've had the opportunity to represent a community that cares about these issues and wants me to be working on them.
Absolutely, and I think your record reflects that focus on the environment. Why do you think city politics sometimes gets more attention than county politics?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think people are just more aware of, and maybe it's inertia, aware of what city politics does. I mean, the folks out there, cleaning up the neighborhood streets and picking up the trash. When there's an issue in your community, you pick up the phone and call your alder. And I think with the county, it seems a little less defined to people, and they might not, fully understand everything we do. Again, maybe because we are in so many different areas. And a lot of what we do is also in partnership with community-based organizations who we contract with, who are out there doing the work, and people might not recognize or know that there's a county connection to that. But also, not every community has a county executive. And we haven't even always had a county executive. So in some ways, it's relatively new. Others don't have this, so they don't have this direct connection, and they don't have someone who's visible, as someone in my position here is. It's really usually something that only larger communities have.
So why are you retiring?
Well, I woke up one day, not literally one day, but, I started getting to a point in my career where, I realized I've been in public office for 27 years, 27 plus years, 12 plus, about 12 and a half now, I think, as county executive. And it just felt like it was time. I feel like I've been blessed that I've been able to accomplish pretty much everything I've wanted to accomplish. And certainly as county executive, because of the opportunities it provides. And I'm in a place in my life where, I'm just ready for whatever comes next. And I don't think people should stay in public office just because they can. I think, every journey has a beginning and an end. And, for me, this part of my journey feels like it's time for it to come to a close. My wife has been retired for the past 3 years, and it looks pretty good. I have to admit. And yeah, but I mean, it really boils down to, I've done what I came to do, and I just feel like I'm in a point in my life where I'm ready to move on.
So you are, like you said, you're retiring, but that's happening some months away in May. Why not wait till your term was over?
Because I'm ready to go now, and I wanted to give plenty of time, for the transition so I can, take care of business here, give folks who might want to run an opportunity to figure that out for themselves and talk to their friends and families. And, but when you're, at a place where you're ready to move on, kind of like, some of my predecessors have, Kathleen Falk left mid her term too. And that's when I ran for office. So it just, life's, personal timelines don't always align with political timelines. So it just feels like the right time.
The decision to leave in May, that's certainly setting up quite the election for county executive in November 2024 during the presidential election.
Yeah.
So, okay, so can you just explain what happens in the interim between May and November?
Yeah. So when I leave, the county board chair will appoint an interim, and then there will be an election that will be held concurrent with the fall presidential election. And then when that person wins, they'll be sworn in as county executive. So sort of like, when Dave Mahoney retired recently and Calvin Barrett was appointed interim, and then there was an election that he obviously won, be similar to that.
What do you think is the biggest challenge your successor will have to tackle?
The biggest challenge overall is always that there will forever be more need than there are resources to address that need. And, one of the hardest parts of this job is that, you become, very aware of the challenges we face, and you become aware of the limitations that we have to address them. And a lot of times that means you have to say no to friends and colleagues and people who have really good ideas and really good projects, but resources are limited. We have obvious challenges, many of which are, the root causes are beyond our control. They're historically and nationally, just driven by a momentum. That doesn't mean we shouldn't do anything about them. But there's a lot to address out in the world. And, to your point about the visibility of, city government versus county, I think county government has become and is becoming more visible to folks. But with that becomes, the fact that county government funds things is becoming more visible to more people. And so the demand is always out there. So just figuring out those priorities, and they change, the priorities in 5 years will very well be much different than they are today, just because of our evolving community and our evolving world. So, yeah. And so what that really leads to is a necessity to partner with other entities, be it other public entities or private or community-based organizations, and realizing that, the big societal challenges that we face right now, be it homelessness, mental health challenges, addressing climate change, et cetera. No one entity can address all of those on their own. And so we have to work with other folks in order to, pool and use our resources in the most effective way.
Well, and we've certainly seen that with the new men's shelter that is being built.
Yeah.
And CARES program. So you mentioned priorities and how difficult that is because you can't do everything. Do you have any regrets as Dane County's executive?
There's not like some big, oh my gosh, I wish I would have done this differently or that differently as far as regrets. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of times I could have done a better job. I'm certainly not representing that I'm a perfect human being who's been the perfect county executive. We all do our best. But overall, I'm not leaving with regrets. I'm leaving with a sense of just great gratitude that I've been able to be in a position like this and meet so many incredible and incredibly caring people who make up this community. And it's one thing to say that when you're running for office, I'm not running for anything, right? I'm going to retire. And I can tell you it's genuine. I mean, this community is so inspiring. We see it daily with, the work of community centers and shelters and folks who are out there, doing outreach for people who are experiencing homelessness on the street, again, looking back to natural disasters and the pandemic and how people in the community watched out for one another. So, I don't really have regret. I have gratitude.
All right. So tough talk time. It's very difficult to argue with your political popularity. You've been elected 4 times to serve as Dane County's executive. You're not without your detractors, though, notably some county board supervisors over the years.
Yeah.
So summing up these criticisms, I guess I put it something like Executive Parisi expects the elected county board to be a rubber stamp for his agenda. What's your response to that?
I think there's nothing unique about that dynamic. I think if you look to any elected body, when you have a legislative body and an executive branch, there's always going to be tension. I mean, I was in the legislative branch in the legislature, even when Governor Doyle was in, we were in the same party, but there was tension between the Democrats in the legislature and Governor Doyle. I don't think you can escape it. You see it on the city level, the state level, the congressional level. I mean, even when President Obama was in, I know people in Congress and, they didn't like to argue publicly, but everyone, that relationship was not without tension. So, yeah, it exists. And, as far as rubber stamp, county government and really any legislative branch is anything but a rubber stamp. I mean, I'm certainly always have and will put out there what I think my priorities are, introduce budgets that I think reflect the priorities of myself and the community. And if people in the legislative branch don't like it, I mean, they certainly have the ability to change it.
So earlier this year, the county board rejected Representative Sheila Stubbs, your pick to run the county Health and Human Services Department. If you could do that one over, what would you do differently?
I think Sheila was and remains eminently qualified to do that job. I think she would have done an amazing job out in the community. She's very connected to the community. She understands needs. She understands the Human Services Department. It's unfortunate that, once it got before the legislative branch, the, clashes that occurred and things that were said happened, but I think she'd do a great job.
Do you think Representative Stubbs will run to replace you?
I don't know. There are a lot of people, considering this right now. A lot of people have reached out to me. I don't really at this point comment on any conversations I've had with anyone because I feel like it's up to the folks who are considering running to be public about what their thoughts are when they get there. But I would expect we're going to have crowded primary. Like we mentioned before, this is Dane County. This is a position that is a very attractive position that doesn't come up very often. I'll be here 13 years. Kathleen Falk was here 14. Rick Phelps 10 before that. So yeah, I think it'll be competitive. But I don't have any insider info regarding anyone who is definitely decided to run right now.
A Republican Dane County executive. Wasn't that long ago. And I agree with you. I think it will be a competitive primary. Do you see yourself endorsing in that race at all, or?
I'm not sure. I'm going to wait and see, keep my options open, see who runs, see what the dynamic is. But at this point, I don't really have a position on it, but I'm just going to wait and see.
So what about controversies surrounding the Henry Vilas Zoo? Do you wish you would have done anything differently regarding the personnel issues involving the zoo's leadership?
No. I mean, there are always going to be issues that come up. And again, it comes back to your original question about, having run-ins with folks on the board and the tension that is there with some folks. It's just part of this job, right? Sometimes you're going to have disagreements with people.
So as a younger man, you dropped out of high school to be a rock drummer, notably with the band Honor Among Thieves. Then you went back to school in your mid-20s. You got your GED and eventually attended UW-Madison. Do you think you could have done that in 2023?
This is one area we need to continue to focus. This is one of the reasons that I've been, from early on in my career, involved with organizations like Operation Fresh Start. I was first sat on their board back when I was county clerk because I was drawn to them because a lot of the young men and women who go to Operation Fresh Start are in positions like I was when I was their age, right? And they're just looking for a second chance and sometimes a third chance. And what we find a lot of times with young people in that position is they have so much potential and so much life experience and so many problem-solving skills that are unique because of the adversity they've faced. And from my perspective, we need young people like that. We need them empowered and we need them to be able to succeed because we need them as young adults and adults because of the strengths that they can bring. But yeah, it's not always easy. And especially if a young person, I was fortunate enough, this didn't happen to me, but if a young person has been involved with the criminal justice system, that comes down on them really hard. It's harder to find a job. It's hard to find a place to rent. It's hard to get an opportunity to go to school. And I think we need to be a lot more understanding of those situations. Because if we don't help those young people, no one benefits from that. So, yeah, it's a passion of mine. I know that today, as someone who raised a couple of daughters, and one of my daughters went to UW-Madison, I wouldn't have been able to get into UW-Madison. It's much more difficult even for kids who live here. Now, I did go to MATC first, and that path is still open, and that's a really valuable and important path. As you know from my history, my history pretty well, Dylan. I certainly didn't set out early in my life to, get involved in public service like this, but I'm really glad it worked out.
Well, do you have any plans on how you'll spend your retirement? When's the last time you picked up some drumsticks?
My wife was out of town last weekend, and I picked up my sticks and went down to the basement and tried to start brushing up on some of my old riffs. Yeah, we'll see. The day I announced that I was retiring, my old bass player texted me, time to dust off the drumsticks. So
I think this needs to happen.
I don't know that I'll be out there performing, but I'm definitely going to get together with the guys and play a little bit. It felt pretty good.
Dane County Executive Joe Parisi, thank you so much for your time and for your service.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
That was Dane County Executive Joe Parisi. And here's what else Madison's talking about. A bill the governor will actually sign. Democratic Governor Tony Evers says he'll sign a Republican-backed proposal that would allow local election officials to process absentee ballots the day before an election. The measure is expected to speed up ballot counting so election results come in quicker. The bill has already cleared the state assembly with bipartisan support. The state Senate still needs to pass it before the legislation is sent to the governor. And heads up, commuters, John Nolan Drive will be reduced down to just one lane in both directions starting today because of several construction projects within the Monona Terrace Tunnel. The city expects this to create some nasty traffic backups on the major thoroughfare, especially during rush hour. The city is advising drivers to find alternative routes. All lanes of John Nolan Drive are expected to be reopened by Christmas. That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm Dylan Brogan. If you enjoyed the show, why not share this podcast with a county employee? If you don't know any county workers, ask me later. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Until then,